This video is a demonstration of a post-sale customer walkthrough for a G-Series furnace. The customer walkthrough is a critical part of customer training in order for them to have enough knowledge to be able to sign off on the customer checklist at the completion of the purchase. We'll be covering a few items today, including how gasification works. We'll talk a bit about airflow again through the furnace, go over some of the key components, talk a little bit about installation and some things to keep in mind, as well as maintenance, and then finally how to operate the furnace. And we'll get started with how gasification works. Let's talk a bit about airflow through the G-Series and how gasification works. When the furnace calls for heat, your logo control is going to turn on your fan motor, which is a negative draft fan, so it actually pulls air through the whole system as opposed to blowing it into the system the way a lot of other manufacturers do. The next thing that happens is the control is going to turn on the top actuator, which then opens this damper plate. And that allows air to be drawn into the firebox, which is basically feeding your fire, creating heat, and generating your BTUs. At the same time, your control is going to be opening and closing this bottom damper as well. The difference is that this opening is controlled by the oxygen level in your exhaust using this O2 sensor here up top. So, kind of to review then, when the furnace calls for heat, the fan comes on, your top actuator opens, air goes into the firebox, and your fire takes off. Then, as the furnace burns, we monitor the oxygen in the exhaust. If the oxygen gets too high, it burns inefficiently. So then this bottom damper is going to close. If the oxygen level is too low, then it needs to open in order to get a fully efficient burn. So that's constantly adjusting in order to get the maximum burn, maximum efficiency for your G-Series furnace. Now when your fan turns on and your top actuator opens, the air is drawn into the firebox, and it comes through the two air channels on either side. There's a series of holes, openings where the air comes in. That's what feeds your fire. That smoke and exhaust then gets drawn down through your stainless steel nozzle in the bottom of the firebox, and that bottom damper plate on the back as it opens allows air to be injected through that nozzle and into those gases as they go down into your tornado combustion chamber. Now, the keys to getting a good burn are threefold. We have time, we have temperature, and we have turbulence. In terms of time, there needs to be enough time within your combustion chamber for all of that gas and smoke to be burned off completely. So now what you're exhausting is just clean air. So the tornado combustion chamber, the air goes down into the first opening, to the back, over to the side, back to the front, and then back around where it goes up your heat exchange tubes. So it spends a long time in there, has plenty of time to burn off all of the smoke and gases. The second factor is temperature. In order for those gases to burn, they have to be superheated. So as the air comes in through these side channels, it gets drawn down through your coal bed. So as it goes through the coals, it gets very, very hot. The fresh air is added to it, and that's what gives you enough temperature in order to initiate that burn in your lower chamber. And then finally, we have turbulence. It's really important that all that smoke gets mixed with the fresh air in order for it to burn properly. So as that exhaust gets pulled down into your lower chamber, you'll notice the inside is round. So all that exhaust spins, gets mixed with the fresh air, and burns off as it goes through the system and then up towards your heat exchange tubes. So the final component of your airflow is transferring heat from the exhaust into the water, and that is accomplished with the heat exchange tubes. So as that exhaust comes out the bottom from your tornado combustion chamber, it comes up through a series of heat exchange tubes. Inside those tubes we have the spiral turbulators. So that superheated air spins in the tubes. As it comes off, the heat gets transferred into the water jacket. So we're going from around 2,000 degrees in the bottom to about 300 degrees in the chimney. All that difference in heat is getting transferred into water. So finally, as it comes and exhausts out of your heat exchange tubes, it gets drawn by your draft fan up and out your chimney. And if you watch while that thing burns, occasionally you may see a little bit of wisp of white, but typically that's just condensation from any moisture in the wood. So very seldom will you see any type of smoke except when you're initially lighting or adding fuel to the fire. And that's how the G-Series works. Another key G-Series component you should be aware of, but doesn't require any maintenance or any type of service, but it's important that you know what's there and how it works, and that's the recirculation pump. Now what the recirculation pump is, make sure that the water temperature at the top of the tank is the same as the temperature at the bottom. And it does that by drawing water from the bottom of the tank and reinserting it at the top. So that water is constantly mixing and maintaining a consistent temperature, ideally at 180 degrees, which is where you have your control set. So if you don't have that water mixing in the tank, it's like having a battery and only charging it halfway full. We always have a full charge, which is like having excess storage capacity. In this section, we're going to take a close look at the new EasyLink control, which was introduced to the G-Series for 2025, with a lot of new features to make it a lot easier and simpler for users to manage. Now, when you first turn it on, it's typically going to come up with a cold start warning because your water is not up to temperature. So in order to start functioning, you're going to need to press the cold start button, and that'll turn it up into cold start mode. And then as the temperature starts moving up, it's then going to switch off and move into your regular heating cycle once it's completed the first cycle under cold start. So as you can see on this screen, it's showing your temperature, which is rising here. It'll also show your oxygen level, which is recorded from the oxygen sensor just before the fan on the back of the furnace. And so that tells you how much air is available to mix with the smoke in the lower combustion chamber. Your top air tells you how far open your top air damper is. And then your bottom air does the same thing for your bottom damper. As you see, when you first start a cycle, the top air is going to go to 100% to get the fire going as quickly as possible. And your bottom air is still at 0 because, as you can see, we're at 13.3% oxygen. So as that oxygen comes down and gets down to the 6% target number, then that bottom air will start to open. So as the oxygen goes down, the bottom air will open up. And then as the oxygen comes up, that bottom air will start to close. So you'll see that go up and down during normal operation. So next we'll go through some of the various settings on your control. We push the arrow key to move forward. So this screen is for setting your temperature. The default setting is at 180 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you'll see we have it set for a 10-degree differential. Which means that temperature will drop 10 degrees, so from 180 to 170, before it goes back into a heating cycle and brings it back up to 180. Now you can go in there and you can change those different numbers. For example, the differential here, if you wanted to have it a little longer burn time, you could increase that differential, say all the way up to 20. And then we'll go back. And now you've got a 20-degree differential. So it'll come on at 160 and heat the water up to 180. The other item on the screen is your unit of measure. We typically default to Fahrenheit, but if you prefer, you could switch it back to Celsius. Our next screen is really important. This is what helps you keep your furnace running in the spring and the fall when it's a lot warmer out and you don't have as big a heat draw on the furnace. So what this does is it turns the fan on and opens your dampers to do a partial heating cycle to keep your coal bed burning. So this first line is start after idle. So what will happen, it's set for 60 minutes. So if you've gone through a normal cycle and it hasn't gone through a second cycle within an hour, then the furnace will turn on and it'll go through this coal bed reignition. So it'll wait an hour, turn on, the fan will come on for 3 minutes, which is your second line. And then after that 3 minutes is up, it's going to shut down. And if there's no regular heating cycle, it's going to come again, on again after 30 minutes. So that will continue to repeat itself until such time as it goes through a regular heating cycle. So that's really important to avoid the hassle of having to relight your furnace 2 or 3 times a day when you're just needing it temporarily for in the spring and fall. And then lastly on this page, you'll see we have a low temperature cutoff. What that will do is if the temperature of the water drops to the setting there of 140, it's going to give you, number one, an alarm telling you that your temperature has gone too low. And secondly, it's going to shut off your fan and close your dampers. And that's in an effort to maintain as much heat as possible, because the system's going to assume that you've run out of coal and that your fire has gone out. So it's going to want to maintain that heat for you. Moving on is the operating mode. This is another new feature for 2025. And this just makes it really easy for you to automatically adjust your settings depending on the quality of your wood fuel. The default here is typically going to be set for seasoned wood. So if you've cut your wood basically a year in advance and stacked and split it and are able to get that moisture content down between typically about 15 and 25% moisture, then we consider that to be properly seasoned wood. If you're under that 15%, it's going to be, we call it dry wood, and we're going to need to adjust your damper settings to account for that wood burning a lot faster and creating a lot more smoke, so it's going to need a lot more oxygen. So the dry wood setting is important if you've got really dry wood. And what many of us run into periodically is, if we're low on wood and the wood we have isn't as well seasoned as we'd like it to be, and it gets above that 25%, then you would want to adjust that for wet wood. And always try to mix in your wetter wood with your dry wood and to keep that moisture content down as much as possible. But again, the target that we're always shooting for is that seasoned wood in that 15 to 25%. This page is for the software for your furnace. Periodically, we do come out with new features and updates that we make available to you. You can either update your software using a micro SD card, or you can also do it if you're set up for Wi-Fi and do it through the app and have it update automatically. So this screen shows that this furnace is set with firmware version 2.3. And when you go to install this on your app, the device name at the bottom here is R2CM. And so you'll need that information when you set up for Wi-Fi. Next we have the clock. Again, it's just a simple tumbler system. You can scroll down the date and the time. And it's a good idea to set this because when you're using the app, you can get different charts and things available. So if something happens to your furnace, you can look back and see exactly, for example, when a heating cycle started, how long it lasted, when it closed, or if you ran out of fuel, it'll basically tell you what time your temperature got too low. And so it's nice to be able to have the correct time and date so you can track those things. And it's really helpful for us as well if we're ever doing any troubleshooting with you. So we encourage you to set that your clock when you first get your furnace installed. This is another important one. A lot of people like to play around with their settings and you want to see what it can do. And sometimes once you get in there, you can't remember how to put it back. So this is a quick way to reset everything right back to the factory defaults. Just push the reset button and basically it gives you a do-over. And so you can start from scratch. And so that's important to know where that is. This is your timer screen. So here with this furnace, you can see that it's been in a run cycle for 3 days, 48 minutes, and 48 seconds. So that's how long it has been burning since the timer was made active. You can also set a trip timer in below it. So you could, for example, at the start of the season, reset your trip timer and you can see how many hours that furnace burns throughout the season. So just one more little feature that you can use and take advantage of. Now there's a few other things to be aware of. Your furnace will periodically give you alarms under certain situations. For example, when you first fire up your furnace, you're going to get a low water level alarm. And so you need to fill your water up until your water level gauge gets to about the midway point on top, and then that low water level alarm can be cleared. Another one that you're going to see is a high temperature alarm. And so what happens if your water temperature gets above 190 degrees, the high limit switch breaks the circuit. You'll get a high temperature limit alarm, and the fan will shut down on your furnace and your dampers will close. And so it's going to try and shut down the furnace as best it can to prevent it from overheating. So you want to be aware of what to do when you get that alarm. Just shut everything down. And then once the water temperature cools down to 160 degrees, then it will reset itself and go back into normal operation. So that's your high temperature. And then the other one that you'll see periodically is you will get an alarm every time you open your smoke bypass. It will just come up on the screen and your warning light will flash. So you've gone to load your furnace and you're walking back to the house and you see the light flashing. That's a great reminder that you didn't close your bypass. So you want to go back and make sure you do that to prevent any chance of the furnace overheating. So those are a few of the key things that you're going to see with your furnace control. There's more information in your owner's manual, or certainly talk to your dealer, and they can be a wealth of knowledge. And of course, we're always available for you here at the factory as well. So good luck and stay warm. Now, another critical part of your training is how to maintain your G-Series furnace. Now, we're not going to go through all of that as part of this video, but I would refer you back to the Level 1 training program called How to Maintain Your G-Series Furnace. And it'll go through all the ins and outs of how to keep your furnace running properly and efficiently over the long term. This last section, we're going to talk about how to operate your G-Series furnace. So let's start by taking a minute and talking about fuel. The G-Series furnace is a precision instrument, and it works best when you have wood that has a moisture content of between 15 and 25%. So we always recommend checking the moisture of your wood before you start burning at the start of the season. Now, many people don't understand the correct way to test the moisture content on your wood, so I'll give you a quick tutorial. So start with a fair-sized piece of cordwood from your pile, and it's important that you split it lengthwise first. You always want to have a fresh split because the moisture content on the end of your log is going to be much lower than it is in the middle. So split it lengthwise, and then every G-Series furnace comes with a handy moisture meter. So just turn your moisture meter on, and then what you're going to do is along the grain, stab it into the grain, wait for a second or two, and that will give you your moisture reading. So again, ideally you want to have between 15 and 25%. If it's a little high or it's a little low, it's not a problem. We just need to account for it in how we're running the furnace. When you're ready to fire up your furnace, you want to make sure your power switch is on the rear, and make sure that the power is also on the control. And typically you're going to have to start by pressing the cold start button, and what that does is turn the fan on and opens your top damper to start the whole burn cycle. So with that running, you're going to want to start your fire in the firebox. A couple of ways you can do that. You can go do the old traditional campfire style, where you might start with some paper, some small kindling, and slowly start building your fire that way and start adding larger and larger pieces of wood. Or if you're impatient like me, you can go a little bit larger splits. Again, stack them up, and then I like to use the torch to get a good hot burn. Once it's burning really well, you can begin adding larger pieces, and over the course of 15-20 minutes, you should be in the position where you've got a real good self-sustaining fire in your firebox. Now, when it comes to loading the furnace, there's a couple ways to do it, but there is one way that we recommend as being the best. So obviously, when it comes to your wood, one of my kind of rules is if I can't lift it with one hand, it's too big for my furnace. Now, that's my preference, but it's a great idea to figure out if you've got the best size. Typically, the smaller your pieces, the drier they are, the faster they'll burn, and the easier it'll be to get your coal bed up and running. As far as placement of the wood, we recommend putting it in across your firebox, not front to back. When you put it crossways, it allows the air from the air channels on the side to more easily penetrate your pile of wood and get down to the nozzle. If you have it stacked in sideways, it's going to have a harder time negotiating through all the different pieces. So it's not a big difference, but we know from experience that you will get a slightly better burn by stacking your wood side to side. So once your fire is established and you're starting to build a bit of a coal bed, you're going to come back on a regular basis to feed the fire. Typically you're going to do that every 12 hours. So when it comes time to load, you always want to open your smoke bypass. So just push the side handle and you'll hear the fan go on. Then carefully open your door to the first notch and you'll hear the fan sucking the air into the furnace. And what that's doing is taking all the smoke and pulling it up through the system and out and up your chimney. After waiting 15-20 seconds, it's safe to open your door and all the smoke will have dissipated. Now when you're loading the furnace, it's kind of tempting to load it right to the top, but in most cases that's not necessary. So as you've been using the furnace for a little while, you're going to get to know how much wood to add in order to get through that 12-hour burn period to the next fill time. So only put enough wood in there to get you through to the next fill, because what happens is when you overfill it, the fire is going to sit, it's going to smolder, and that's going to release more smoke and it's going to release more moisture, and there's nowhere for that moisture to go. So when you have moisture and you have ash, that's when you develop creosote, and you're going to be spending a lot more time doing cleaning and doing maintenance. So every 12 hours, fill what you need and avoid that tendency to overfill it and overstack it. One of the most critical aspects of getting long life and proper functioning of your furnace is regular and ongoing maintenance. One of the things we added to the G-Series in 2025 is a new side access to make it easier to clean out below your spiral turbulators. Now to do that, you just need a 9/16 wrench to loosen off your two bolts, and they should come off fairly easily. And you'll notice on the door we do have a silicone gasket to seal the air in, so you're not getting any air leaks causing it to overheat. Plus you have a lot of insulation which helps protect that door from that 2,000-degree heat you're getting in your bottom chamber. If you look inside this access area, you'll notice that it goes right through your water jacket and all the way underneath your spiral turbulators. So you may find over time that you do get some ashes built up in behind the brick. It can be hard to access it with that L-shaped rake. I've experienced that myself. So once you open it up, if you do have some ash or some creosote built up, just take your rake, you can slide it right in, get in under the spirals and clean out this side, just like you would when you're regularly cleaning your refractory. Now, if you get in a situation where your spirals are starting to stick a little bit, that's usually an indication that you've had some moisture in there, you're starting to get a little bit of creosote. And one of the easy ways to deal with that is by applying some direct heat right to your heat exchange tubes. So you can take a torch, for example, if you happen to have a weed burner, and just slide it in, and underneath each set of spirals, let it go for 5 minutes or so. If there's a lot of creosote, you'll see some smoke coming out the chimney as it burns off. But apply heat directly to each one of those tubes that may be getting a bit sticky. And that should clean that right up for you, and then you're back in business. When that's all done, real simple, just take your cover, slide it back in place. Now, before you put it back on, it is a good idea to put some anti-seize on the bolts. You do have a lot of heat coming through there. That'll make it a lot easier to get those bolts off next time that you need to access behind your refractory. So tighten it up, just fairly tight, again with your 9/16 wrench, and that's all there is to it. It's really quite simple. Now let me share with you a few tips about installing your G-Series furnace. Before putting your furnace in, you're going to need to run an underground water line from your building to your furnace, as well as a power cord. Now typically with the underground line, we recommend a 1-inch Rhinoflex pipe, which is extremely efficient and one of the most durable products that you can find on the market. Now, if you're getting into a situation where you're running more than about 150 feet from the furnace to the building, or 100 to 150 feet, you may want to consider going to a larger pipe like 1.25 inches or a 32 millimeter. But again, you want to look at the capacity of the pumps, look at the difference, and make sure you run that calculation before making a decision. So just something to keep in mind. When you go to do your installation, you typically want to dig your trench. You're going to want to dig it anywhere from 18 to 36 inches deep, depending on where you're located and the type of ground that you're putting it through. It's a good idea on the bottom of the trench to put in some sand or some gravel so that you do have some drainage. Also, at the bottom of your trench, you can run a underground rated electrical cable in order to run your furnace. And you're going to have that hooked up to a 15 amp breaker. So it doesn't draw a lot of power, but you want to make sure you have that set up properly. Once your cable's in place, your pipe is in place, you can backfill it, and then your underground installation is complete. When you get to the furnace, you're going to want to bring your pipe up through the floor so that you can connect your pumps. Now, in the bottom of the furnace, there are a series of knockout plates. So there's 2 on this side, which line up with your supply and return lines. So depending on which one you want to use, you just knock out the plate and you run your pipe up from underneath. If your pipes are already installed, it's very difficult to drop the furnace down over top of the pipe. So you can undo these screws in the bottom and pull the door sill right off and take out your knockouts, slide the furnace back over the pipe, and then put your sill back into place. So from there, you strip the outer coating off your pipe to expose your PEX lines. Now you need to install your pump. Again, pump sizing is going to depend on what you're heating, how many BTUs you need, the length of pipe. Again, consult with your dealer or with a Heatmaster representative to give you some assistance with that. Your furnace comes with isolation flanges installed. These are important because if you ever have to replace your pump, you want to be able to turn the water off so you're not draining the stove or draining your lines whenever you need to do that. So install it with the isolation flanges in place, and you also want to make sure that it's pumping in the right direction. And we've seen it happen before where people, not knowing any better, have installed them upside down. So typically on your pump, like this one here, you're going to see an arrow on the casing of the pump. So you hook your pump up to the supply line, arrow facing down, which is the flow towards your house. So again, hook your pump up to your supply line at the bottom and the return line to the top. And that is the basics of doing your installation. So now that you've got your G-Series furnace installed and everything's hooked up, before you can light your fire, you have to fill the furnace with water. So the simplest way to do that is just with your regular garden hose, run it up to the fill tube on top. Now, most water supplies are fine, your municipal water, or if you have well water, so long as it doesn't have too much calcium or too much iron in it, you should be fine. So it fills up, tends to fill up fairly quickly, so I like to use the gauge, put the gauge in every few minutes and check where your water level is. Once you get up to about halfway, you're done. If you fill it too much, when you fire the furnace, the water is going to expand and it's going to overflow the top. It's not a problem, but it just kind of makes a mess. Once the water is in, the next step is to treat it. And to do that, you use the Heatmaster boiler treatment. Now, this is a special formula we had designed for us specifically for outdoor wood boilers and open systems. And what it does is help reduce the chance of corrosion or any kind of leaks within your furnace. Now, when you first install or add your water, you want to add 1 gallon of treatment for every 200 gallons of water. I believe in your G4000, you're going to be about 116 gallons of water, plus you're going to have some water in your pipes and your heat exchangers and such. So you're probably going to want to put in about 2/3 of a gallon. And you can just do that again by pouring it in through your fill tube. So once you've got your treatment in, you're going to want to circulate your system for about 48 hours and make sure that treatment has gone through all your pipes, through all your heat exchangers, and has a chance to work its way through the whole system. But we can't assume that your treatment is going to be right based on your particular water type. So it's really important to send in your test and repeat that every year to make sure your water condition is up to spec. So to do that, in your package with your owner's manual, you're going to see a set of labels, and in the back you're also going to find 4 mailing tubes. Inside the tube is your water test bottle. So you just go to the back of the furnace, you open the drain valve on the bottom, let a little bit of water run out first to make sure that there's no sediment or anything in the bottom of your tank. Then fill your bottle up to about 2/3 full, cap it off, and then complete 2 of the labels. One of the labels is going to go on the bottle, and one label is going to go on the shipping tube. So fill it out in full, all of the relevant information. We really appreciate it if you put an email address on there, because then we'll be able to email you the results as soon as they're available. Testing can take anywhere from a couple of weeks in the off season to 4 to 6 weeks when we're really busy. So just please be patient and we'll get those to you as quick as we can. Once your label's filled out, again, put one on your bottle, put one on your shipping tube, go down to the post office or your courier, affix your postage, pop it in the mail, and you're good to go.